Alright guys, HyDra again. So I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. What an enthralling day of CDL action here today. Really edge of your seat stuff today. Who knew who was going to win these series from start to finish, right? But mainly the reaction we've got to dive into, because some hilarious content coming out as a result, especially questions raised as to which teams are the worst team, not just in the CDL right now, but potentially the worst CDL teams of all time. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to say quickly from Crim again. If you guys haven't been keeping up with this stuff, quali for Crim is going to be tomorrow, and then the first race, of course, also tomorrow. And apparently he was P1 in practice again, so I don't know what Crim's cooking right now, but something seemingly pretty special indeed. Also, big update though from Jason Lake. So if you guys are aware, Complexity Gaming, as with many other esports organizations over the last several years, pretty much 2019, 2018, years like that, there was so much money flying in that people like Hex and Jason Lake, I don't exactly know the timeframes on that, but it was the case that many OGs of esports were starting to be offered crazy money, maybe not crazy money, but, you know, a lot of money for some sort of ownership in their organization. And often the ownership group would buy it and effectively ruin it, right? We saw what happened with Hex. He had to buy OpTic back, and, you know, he's obviously gone through hell and back really to make that happen, partnering with NRG, now with Envy, and of course doesn't have much of a stake left in OpTic, as we of course saw when that lawsuit was leaked. But actually Jason Lake, again, one of the real esports OGs, has bought back Complexity, or at least is buying it back. So we know that Complexity, of course, legendary team in esports, but also most certainly in the Call of Duty space, 2014 World Championship winning team, and legendary dynasty of the time before they, you know, went to Evil Geniuses, and the rest is history. And Cole stayed around in COD for some time. I'm not going to lie, I miss the old logo. I wish they'd bring this back. Hopefully when Jason Lake comes back in again, he can return the logo, let's say, to its former glory. But as he says, new chapter has begun. Hope you'll join us as it unfolds. So hopefully it could be a good thing there for esports, but maybe also for COD, because, look, I don't think Jason Lake's going to come through and drop big money to get a CDL spot, but who knows what happens in the next 12 months in terms of whether the CDL still remains to exist in the current form that it does, because I somehow doubt that's going to be the case for all that much longer. We did also have this, though, from Scump discussing the watch party in Miami, and this is something we've also been trying to figure out as well over the last couple of weeks, what we do for breaking points here, because obviously we want to do the watch party like we did in Boston in Miami, but this is what can happen when there's new venues that people aren't so familiar with. Boston and Toronto, for example, we know what's going on. Been there last year, know what the venue's like. Everyone knows what they're doing. But the Miami event is their first time at this venue, so there's going to be complications from the venue side, from the organizational side, and I think there's just been problems with Scump and the boys getting the space they need. Scump says, like, it's not really our fault on this. They're probably going to be going there anyway to do some sort of, like, I don't know, meet and greet, or maybe just get an Airbnb and do the watch party from there. I don't really know. So they might come up with some sort of roundabout solution here, but yeah, not ideal for Scump and the boys for sure, and kind of unfortunate that in an ideal world, the league would say, oh yeah, fantastic, right? We'll get Scump there. Let's make sure we get the space. But that's not really how it works. Like, Scump has to, and the boys over there have to kind of, you know, relay, let's say, with the organization and the runners of the event to try and find the room. And they're like, well, you know, okay, we can get you internet, we can get you power, but we can only promise you this much space. You know, how about getting the direct line into the matches? You know, there's lots of complications that you don't really consider before you do this stuff. And unless at times the venue is tried and tested, or if the guys that are involved are particularly experienced, it can be a bit of a challenge. So, you know, again, it's not like the CDL is going to go out of their way to help Scump, I imagine, right now, given the whole lawsuit shenanigans going on in the background, right? So, unfortunately, this is probably something we'll just have to deal with really as a community. Now, before we get into the games, just wanted to mention, Linz, of course, has been very good so far this season. By our Breaking Point Rookie of the Year ladder, Linz is #1. Gwyn, Snoopy, aBeZy, Estriel, okay, Purge, Geo, ErikBooM come in there as the honourable mentions, and, you know, ErikBooM is unfortunately quite a way down the list, and to be fair, Purge might not be far off being a top 5 Rookie of the Year right now, which is pretty impressive, the turnaround on Vegas, it's got to be said, but maybe that turnaround's been sparked by Geo in some respects as well, so maybe he could be slightly higher up, to be fair. But these were today's games, and it's like, when you see these matches, you're fearing the worst, shall we say, and I mean, we're on Barcelona time right now, so I'm an hour ahead of the UK, and these matches have still finished nice and early in the day. And I imagine some of the guys on the West Coast feel like they've barely got out of bed and already the games are done and dusted. So, first of all, there was a few things to say going into the Rocker series, and my big question was, they'd started out 0-3 this stage. Yes, they played good teams, right? I mean, they obviously lost to OpTic, they lost to Toronto, and now they played FaZe. So, tough start for Rocker to their qualifier run, and it gets easier for them. But they went 0-4, let's not forget, in the first set of qualifiers back in December, January. Then they turned it around, made it to winners, made it to top 4 very impressively. So I don't know if they necessarily have that in them again. The question was, understandably maybe, when they lost to Boston, especially in the way that they did, maybe they're chalked, you know what I mean? Mentally, are they in the best spot right now? Losing in those manners. And I've got to say, even today, they can get themselves into decent positions, but closing out when they see the victory line, something goes wrong, and it can't just be my feeling of this, you know what I mean? Like, do you not see it as well? So there were a couple of issues for the team. First of all, aCaRacy fractured his pinky the other day. I don't know if him dunking on Linz just shattered Linz's confidence as well, because he wasn't playing great today. Wake was also spotted with some of this athletic tape on his forearm here, like on his wrist, which is interesting. I think we've seen Sib do this before in some form or another, and maybe people were saying that Wake had it on last week as well. So yeah, hope's all well with Wake, and maybe it's just a precautional thing, right? Because we know that the players can suffer with hand and wrist, injuries, and will continue to, frankly, unless they really take care of their health from a physical perspective and a mental perspective as well as they possibly can. But again, it was kind of the same old story here, really, for Wake and the Minnesota Rocker on this. And as I said, I did expect FaZe to come out and handle business, really. Whenever they tend to lose, they do tend to turn it around the next series. And they played like traditional FaZe in this series that we would often see back in Cold War when they lost a series and then would just slam the next team they played. But I think there was a bit more to it on Minnesota just looking kind of poor. FaZe were probably always going to chow them on a rear, which is what happens. And they got pretty much slammed a rear. Okay, it was reasonably competitive, but it felt like FaZe always had this one in the bag. And yeah, Drazah on the SMG. We talked earlier today, the Rival 9, it's a pretty good gun. And aBeZy as well turned up big time in this series as well. I was pretty impressed, I've got to say, by aBeZy's turnaround maybe this season so far. Not like he started bad, but over the last couple of weeks, I think aBeZy's really turned up, and maybe that is the Rival becoming better and aBeZy getting more comfortable with it. But yeah, fair play. Drazah had a phenomenal map one here, finished on a 7 spree. But it was a good chance for a little bounce back here at the start of the game too. Awakening clutches a 1 versus 3, very nicely done to, win this situation, get the retake going on, and get through to a 1-0 advantage. But, okay, great, 1-0. I looked back a couple of seconds later, Rocker up 2-1, okay, fair enough. And then very shortly afterwards, it's 4-2 FaZe, 5-2 FaZe, and basically it's done and dusted. Okay, it didn't actually go 5-2 FaZe because of a pretty ridiculous ninja defuse we'll discuss here in a second. I also think, and there is definitely a big tendency towards this, that when better teams play teams they know they're better than, they do often let the foot off the gas. And we'll discuss that here with Toronto in just a couple of seconds. But Awakening clutches this 1 versus 3. And aCaRacy clutches this 2 versus, this is a 2 versus 3 that they eventually clutch here. aCaRacy a 2 versus 4 really. aCaRacy finds himself in a 1v2, gets on the defuse, and actually just about gets it job done. So pretty unbelievable really. But still, there was a few rounds that they lost, 2v2s, they shouldn't be losing. And okay, aBeZy went on a crazy spree to close out the game. But again, it's the same story. Minnesota choker, whatever you want to call them. They get nearing the finish line and they just can't find a way to do it. And it's the same story with their Game 4s. If you look at their Game 1 record, which is pretty decent this season, compared to their Game 4 record, it's night and day. And it's why is that? Why is your Game 1, it's both hardpoint, right? Why are your Game 1 so much better than the Game 4s? Part of the explanation has to be that often they'll be 2-1 going into Game 4, and it's oh my god, here we go, boys, it's time to win the series, and they just can't do it to save their life. They lose the Game 4, and then bang, Game 5 goes down the drain as well. This time, of course, nowhere near a Game 5 because they got beaten in the invasion control. It wasn't, again, it went round 5. Rocker had their chances, but goes round 5, and even with some opportunities on that attack, FaZe just effectively smoke them when it matters. And it's a hot 3-0, right? So questions to be raised on Minnesota, I think, as to, we know that they're not great right now, they've regressed somewhat, but can they get back to where they were? I'm not so sure. I think from a mentality perspective, they've got to be in a really tough spot right now, and it doesn't help when, the FaZe social media are taking the mick out of you, right? Obviously the X-ray, which is taking the piss out of aCaRacy's X-ray that he put on the other day with his pinky finger, and I don't know if the Rocker social guy heard what I said the other day about certain FaZe Clan series or Atlanta FaZe series from back back in the day belonging on adult websites, but, I think, to be fair, today's series pretty much did. And as Drazah goes on to say, just to cloud them even further, GG's Minnesota 1-3-0, those guys are horrible. So, not sugarcoating anything at all, letting them know that they suck and they need to do significantly better. So, harsh words from Drazah, but right now, quite possibly fair words from Drazah, because while the fact that they've been very competitive in recent times, it does not change the story that when push comes to shove, any team in the league pretty much is going to take themselves to beat Rocker in those important moments at the moment, and it's not like they have the slaying either. Lin's got fried today as well. I mean, okay, he had the worst KD in the server, but he didn't even get that badly fried compared to the other guys. To be fair, 9.5k damage is not where Lin has normally been, but even if he played better, I don't think it would have massively made much difference. And look, you look at the numbers, it's like, wow, 250, 193, 64, 32. You wouldn't think it was this dominant. So maybe there's something to be said on that from FaZe's side. But, it's just like FaZe had no doubts that they were going to close out these moments because Rocker just have no ice. And nobody's denying that, unfortunately, for those guys right now. And then really just to add salt in the wounds, I mean, this series was just hilarious. You've just got to sit back and watch this with a smile on your face and just enjoy what is to come, because you know what's going to happen before the series begins. There's no doubt the way this series ends. It's just a matter of how we get to the end. You know what I mean? And I think that was the funny part here. This is the best team in the league right now versus the worst team in the league. And arguably the worst team that I've really ever seen in the CDL. There have been bad teams in COD history. Elevate, I think it was Infinite Warfare springs to mind, where they played 18 maps and won 0. We don't want to talk about that again as a European COD fan, let's say, but in the CDL era, has there ever been a team this dysfunctional, this lost, this lacking in hope? I mean, it is just unbelievable to witness, right? So game one, again, it's like, Surge, they do okay for some time, but Toronto have no doubt in their heads the fact that they're going to win. And they just think, all right, maybe we'll try now, and then they're going to win. And they know it, and Surge know it as well. And that's what causes results like this when, so basically, Toronto decided, okay, maybe let's actually put our foot down here a little bit. And then they won the game very comfortably indeed. I mean, look at the body language, right? Toronto are chilling, Scrap sitting back in his chair, Envoy was laughing. Okay, you can't see that in this screenshot, but everyone on Surge looks so dead and buried. It's like, how do you expect to get any results when they look like they've lost? Any screenshot you see of Surge, they look like they've already lost. You could look at any single picture of their pictures during the game and you'd think that was literally the screenshot after they got 3-0'd. But it's not, it's all the time, and it's every single game that they play. So, here was Scrappy, by the way, he was yawning, and I know he was doing it for the cameras as well. This guy is pretty funny. So, they win the Search and Destroy. It's funny, right, because I think at the start of this game, when Surge were looking good in Search and Destroy, they played Ultra and got slammed on Karachi Search. I think they got 6-0'd. So, they play it again against them today, which I thought was kind of confusing. And sure, Ultra threw a couple of rounds. I mean, this was a funny one where Scrappy, they're up 4-0 here. Scrappy literally jumps off the top rope to get this kill, throwing his life away in the process. But he just decided, you know what, I'm going to go for it, go for the World Star. He gets the kill on Hook as well, which is the funny part. He then immediately dies. They lose the round. They lose the next round. Doesn't matter. They win the game regardless. Scrap was even in the game chat as well, mid-Search and Destroy, just completely taking the piss out of these guys. And then the final map of the series looked like it was going to go the other way, but I had no doubt in my mind that the Ultra were going to win this one and Surge were going to throw it away. But to be fair, round one, Surge won, and then the second round, Hook goes massive. I'll also say Surge's playstyle, watching them play, is like, oh, Hook, do you mind going in first so I can bait you? Oh, brilliant. Now it's my turn to bait Hook, and then the other guy is like, all right, but now it's my turn to bait Hook. It's just, when you have one SMG, this is what you get, and it's just awful to watch, I'm not going to lie. But when it works, fair play. We know Hook's got talent, and they win the first couple of rounds. And also, arguably, again, Surge pulling out every trick in the book. Maybe some snakes getting thrown around. Who even cares at this point? Surge are terrible anyway. They know they're terrible. Why not just give it a go? So, Toronto, they slam them. They bring it back from 2-0 down in the crouching control to winning it 3-2. And again, it's like once they decided to try, then there was just absolutely no comparison. You would genuinely think these teams were in different leagues. You would think the talent discrepancy and the teamwork discrepancy, this is like tier 1 versus tier 3, but it's not. Apparently, they're both CDL teams, but I'm not sure that I personally see it. Of course, Scrappy having a good time as a result. GG Surge 1-3-0, and this was the box score. Fair play to Nastie. He somehow comes out of that positive, not with the most damage in the lobby. Hook actually really tried his best here, and I guess aBeZy didn't have a .69 or 6.8 or whatever he's had for once, so maybe an improvement, but yeah, but again, it is just one of those series that I think you've just got to sit there and laugh at sometimes. So that's going to do it for today. Very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.